My setup is all kinds of messed up right now. I am on the world's smallest desk. Well, that's not true, but it feels like it.
You should just have your normal headphones and a microphone. Oh, yeah. You have the... No, you can go USB. Why are you XLRing the microphone?
No. It's USB, but like I have the microphone on a little desk stand because I'm traveling, and I traveled with this little tripod stand thing that's sitting right in front of me on the table, which means there's nowhere for my keyboard. Like I can't type. It's very small. Everything is just very compact, and I don't like it.
Maybe you need to go like super like sound booth style and like just sit off to the side, just like sit like 3 feet away from your computer, just like talking to your microphone.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost what I need to do, but like I still wouldn't have a spot to put a keyboard because like I want to be able to like use a mouse and type. Like we have a document and we have stuff and I want to be able to like type and I can't.
Can you just put the laptop? No, because everything's plugged into it. Yeah, no, I got nothing for you. You need a bigger desk.
I definitely need a bigger desk, and I could also use a boom arm of some sort, even if it was one that was on a table that kind of came up and over, like not something that clamps on, but just something like sits on a desk or even on the floor. But right now I am stuck because I have this little tripod mic stand sitting between me and my computer, which makes it challenging to use the computer.
Well, you sound great.
Oh, thanks. I'm also on a glass desk, so it's going to echo all over the place, and I'm sure it's going to sound weird, so apologies in advance for that.
You sound good on Discord, but I know it does a lot of heavy lifting.
Yes, we shall see what it sounds like in the final record. Welcome back to Pride and Accomplishment. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jason. This is episode 85. I almost forgot what to say there.
Yeah, it's episode 85.
You think after 85 episodes I'd figure it out?
Well, to be fair, I mean, you've only done 42 and a half of them, so.
Oh, good point. You think after 42 and a half of them I'd figure it out. I struggle with it every time. Every time I have the second half of that intro, I struggle with what I'm supposed to say.
That's the easy part. Anyway, welcome to episode 85.
This is the second of the Chris and Jason have weird things going on, so thanks for bearing with us. Thanks for listening. And we'll have a show. It'll be on time. We're recording really early, but that's okay. Nothing we're going to talk about today is particularly time sensitive. Maybe when we want to get into that first time-ish sensitive one. Chris, you were telling me about this.
Yeah, we finally got a release date for World of Warcraft Dragonflight, which is coming out on the end of November 29th, I believe it is. Oh, November 28th.
Are you gonna get it?
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting it because, well, where I am right now, I don't have a ton of time to play games just because my work schedule now is a little bit hectic. But, leveling in WoW and like doing content in MMOs and such is like a nice solo activity for like after a long day of work when you're in a time zone that's incompatible with like playing games with other people, which is ironic to say that like playing an MMO without other people is a good way to compensate for not being able to play with other people. But yeah, that's where my headspace is at the moment.
I've got like the most soloable MMO ever built for you.
Oh yeah? What's that?
Guild Wars 2.
Yes, I suppose it would be, wouldn't it?
But no, I get what you're saying. I mean, an MMO like World of Warcraft means, it's got a really good LFG system. It's got really good systems where you don't necessarily need a group of friends. You can just play whenever, wherever, with whoever.
Exactly. Yeah. And I also have a few friends that have some really weird schedules. So there is a chance that I would line up with their crazy schedules to play as well.
What? Oh, it's Dragonflight. It's the Guild Wars 2 World of Warcraft expansion.
Yes, this is the one where they took the flying mechanics of the Griffins from Guild Wars 2 and put it into WoW. At least that's as far as I understand it. I don't have a Griffin in Guild Wars, so I really can't talk to that experience very well.
Well, now you can have one in WoW.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to get one in Guild Wars because I'll just get one in WoW.
Yeah, that's how that works. What? Okay, so that's all anyone's ever talked about was the mount that you get, but like, is there anything else happening in Dragonflight that's like noteworthy? Like, Can Alliance and Horde play together yet? Is that a thing they can do now?
I believe that actually just changed in the most recent patch of the current expansion of Shadowlands. I think they now have kind of blurred those lines pretty significantly, so you can kind of play across faction. But I'm not sure that it like is super appreciated by the community. Now, let's all remember, I haven't played WoW in probably 6 months, maybe even longer at this point. So I'm a little bit out of the loop on World of Warcraft. But my understanding is that there is a way to kind of list yourself in the LFG and just like find people and play with them, you know, like across factions and all of that. So I think that's fixed.
Does that mean we can start Alliance characters now?
Yeah, I think it does. I actually do think it does, which would be, I would prefer.
Me too.
But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I have a bunch of Horde characters now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. And so I will probably keep some of those. We'll see what the new like hub area is too, because every new WoW expansion comes with like a new like capital city, so to speak. And like depending on how like the Horde and Alliance sides of that kind of break down, or how the different like different aesthetics and things like that all play together, that really affects where I want to spend my time and which faction I would prefer to be. I don't really get into the min-maxing of like the, this racial trait on humans is better and this one on orcs is better, so you have to play Alliance for these characters and Horde for those characters. Like, I don't get super into that most of the time. So I'm not too worried about it, but we'll see how the capital city thing goes.
They've been doing shared capital cities for a while.
Yeah, they starting with Battle for Azeroth, they kind of did a shared capital city, which they didn't. Never mind. Starting with I'm totally blanking on the name of it. Yeah, the one after BFA.
The one with the pyramid.
The giant pyramid. Yeah, that one was shared. And what on earth was it called?
I have no idea.
Oh my goodness.
I played it for a little bit too.
This is killing me. Now I have to look up a list of...
I'm going to look it up.
WoW expansions.
Burning Crusade. No, that's an old one. Battle for Legion? No. What the heck?
Was it Battle for Azeroth? Battle for Azeroth, actually, it might have been that the pyramid thing was the Horde city to the... whatever it was called, Borealis place for the Alliance, which was an amazing little city. I loved it. Zuldazar was the name of the one, or no, was it Zuldazar? Yeah, for the big pyramid, and I did not like that big pyramid at all.
So they weren't shared in BFA?
No, I guess they weren't. That's true. In Shadowlands, they are shared, definitely.
Okay.
Shadowlands is like everybody's just all for one for all. There's no, I know that for a fact.
I kind of like that. I don't know. I was never into the whole Horde Alliance separation, can't ever play together. Like, I get a faction thing. I get, like, having sides and faction wars and all of that, but, like, I never really cared for, like, they literally can't even speak to each other level of separation.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never liked it. It's not why I play. I know a lot of people identify as Horde or Alliance, but there's just as many people, and I feel like most of the people that still play WoW are mostly chasing after different like advantages and min-maxing of their characters more so than like, oh, I really hate the Alliance and I only want the aesthetics of Horde. But there's been a pretty strong swing in the direction of Horde, and I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know. I haven't really been playing a lot of WoW, obviously, because I've not been subscribed for 6 or 10 months. But I started to look into the Dragonflight like features and like what was going on, like what they're going to do, and they actually look like they're doing a lot of systems work and a lot of like client work, which I really appreciate. I don't know what the combat's like. I don't know what the leveling experience is like. I really haven't paid much attention to like the areas and all of those things. But they are doing an overhaul of the crafting system, sort of, in Dragonflight. So I think that's, as someone who likes PvE stuff and likes, economy stuff a little bit, but I'm not really a min-maxer there. I'm happy to see them putting some effort into trying to make it so that crafting feels worth it, and like people will want to do crafting and all of those kinds of things.
Do people do any crafting in Shadowlands? Like, is it part of the economy at all right now?
It is a little bit. I mean, so there's different professions, of course, and you can have two professions. So you can have, like mining and blacksmithing, or, enchanting or tailoring or whatever. And so things like enchanting and jewel crafting and the things that use consumables, so like alchemist with potions, right? That kind of stuff that's used for raids, that has kind of a constant level of demand, I would say. But oftentimes people will just make an alt that has those skills, and they'll just make them for themselves, or they'll have a guildmate that'll do it for them or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It's taken away some of the economy of it. And I'm not sure that the change that they're making is going to like fix it, but it is interesting because for the last, I want to say 4 expansions, they've done these things where they've got like time gated crafting stuff. So you can like make one, bolt of rare cloth or whatever each day. And like literally on a day timer, right? On the daily reset, you can only do that each day. And so then it takes, 30 of those to make a piece of tailored, gear. And so like, there's a lot of time gating to that. There's a lot of like, and those things are soulbound. So they only work on the tailor themselves. So like you'll have your mage, they'll be a tailor. They can only do this for themselves. And that's not like great, because then you're like, oh, well, I have to keep switching my professions around, or I have to, make sure I pick the professions that only match with the character that I'm playing and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of locks you in a little bit.
Yeah. Guild Wars does a lot of that one thing a day, but they're sellable. So you have options, and it doesn't seem as overwhelming or daunting or locking in.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that some of that might have to do with the kind of vertical versus horizontal progression side of things. Guild Wars really goes for that sense of pride and accomplishment, whereas WoW is really more about like the gear grind and like getting the next item level and all that kind of stuff. So they have to control and like gate some of the progress that you can make on that. So, but they're making a change now in World of Warcraft where they're adding a crafting order system. So you can go put out like, hey, I need one of these whatevers, and I will put up some of the materials and I'll pay you for the rest, or whatever it is. And you can put up kind of like an auction house. You can put up a thing that's saying like, I'm looking for somebody to build this for me. And then somebody can come along and look at that kind of board of orders, and then they can say, oh yeah, I have that skill. I have some of those materials this person doesn't have. Their price is reasonable. I will do this. And then they can kind of do the crafting for you. And certain people, you can have crafting skill on individual recipes now also. So like certain people may be really good at crafting certain things.
Oh God. Chris, don't hate me. Do you know what this all reminds me of?
EVE Online.
It reminds me of contracts in EVE Online.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say that.
Gosh, man, it's wow. That's, I mean, good for them. I think it's the system that works, but that is definitely building some systems around crafting for sure.
Yeah, and it's trying to make it, I think it also is taking advantage of some of the realities of like the current player base of World of Warcraft. It's much less centered around guilds. I mean, there certainly are guilds, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's a lot more like individual players, a lot of solo players that are, or maybe in small groups that aren't really a full guild, not really a full raid group, those kinds of things. And so there's a little bit more of a mercenary kind of economy going on in terms of like, oh, I don't have my guild and the person in my guild who is, the specialist in tailoring or whatever. So I need to go to kind of the open market. And so they're building in these systems that are starting to help kind of connect players who otherwise absolutely would not interact with each other at all. And I think that is kind of cool that they're realizing that and they're declining player base and doing some things to try to fix it.
That's a really good point. And I wonder if we should write this down for a future episode on the size of communities, gaming communities, because I really latched on to you kind of saying like people game in much smaller groups than they used to. I mean, I think that's true on the grand scale, right? The raid, the number of people required for a raid used to be 40 and now it's
10,
not.
I don't know,
40,
12,
right? 10. I mean, it's 10 in Guild Wars. It's probably 10 to 50. I mean, it scales now in World of Warcraft, right? Like between 10 and 30 or 10 and 20 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
You know, dungeons are a huge piece of content. They're 5. You know, and Final Fantasy, I think it's 4 and 8, or something along those lines. So I'm sure a Final Fantasy person will correct me. In Lost Ark, it's 4 or 8. You know, these MMOs, the group content, the largest group content available is much smaller. And I think I don't know which one's leading and which one's lagging, but the community size is also shrinking. You used to have these massive guilds, like with we've got you need that enchanted. We've got 5 people over there. That's all they do is enchanting. Like,
right.
Those are the enchanting guys. Go talk to them. And now you're right. It's everyone's in a much smaller group. I don't know. I just really latched onto this concept that you mentioned, and maybe we should talk about it more in an episode on its own.
Yeah, I'd say let's explore that later. But I do think, just as a passing note here, that this is I'm trying to see kind of the WoW game designers start to adapt to the situation that they're actually in. So I think that's kind of interesting from my perspective. Another thing that they're doing in WoW at a client level is they are adding UI customization to the actual official base game client, so that you don't have to go download 300 add-ons that do all sorts of stuff to let you move the stuff wherever you want.
They're Sherlocking add-ons.
They're Sherlocking ElvUI is really what they're doing.
Is it going to be as in-depth as ElvUI?
It seems like it is. I mean, they showed something where that like puts a little grid on the screen, and like you can move your character health bar wherever you want, and you can like put your action bars wherever you want and size them and scale them however you want. And so like they showed a UI in one of the videos that they had that looked straight out of, like, you could have told me it was made with ElvUI, and I was like, oh yeah, totally it is. But it was no add-ons. It was native client, which was really cool. And one of the things that they said was, like, we wanted to make sure, you know, add-ons do a lot of heavy lifting for this. Add-ons do fill this gap, but we wanted to make sure that even players who don't have add-ons, or aren't going to go find add-ons or whatever, will be able to kind of take advantage of these UI customizations and have a UI that really works for them, because World of Warcraft is 17 years old or something like that. And when World of Warcraft started, you know, we had monitors that were 1024 by 768. Like, now we have these giant ultra-wide monitors. We've got 4K screens. I mean, the resolution and the size of screens and the amount of detail and content that you can put on a screen has drastically changed in the last 15, 20 years. So it really is long overdue for an update.
Yeah, and I think building a customization system within the game does 2 things. One, it probably allows them to change the default a little easier, so that it looks a little bit more modern. But it also makes it not a problem anymore, I guess, kind of thing. Like, the default, the current or old or whatever you want to call it, World of Warcraft UI looks super out of date. Like, it looks like a super old MMO, right? But if you just say, hey, like, yeah, that's what it looks like, but you can customize it in-game without add-ons, you kind of like null that con of the game. And you say, yeah, you just make it look however you want. And you know what's funny to me is, like, this used to be a staple of, like, there was a time after World of Warcraft, but before now, somewhere in there, where customizing UI was like a staple of MMOs, and anything really with a heads-up display that was, you know, not a first-person shooter. Like, I don't know. There were a lot of games out there where you could customize your UI. The one I'm thinking of is, and this is crazy, and I know I always come back to this example, but it's not Guild Wars 2. It's Guild Wars 1.
Really?
Yes, you could move you could move your minimap, you could resize it, you could change like where the enemy health bar shows up, where you could change all of that stuff. You could resize it, they had like a super intense UI editor. And Guild Wars 2 does not, which we can complain about later, but that was a thing for a while. Like Star Wars The Old Republic has a super in-depth UI editor where you can move and drag and drop and all that other stuff. So I'm glad, and I mean, World of Warcraft has always solved this with mods, but I appreciate the modding scene in World of Warcraft. I appreciate the support for mods in World of Warcraft, but I am pleased to hear that they have taken this under the native client wings.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to change the way that a lot of people play the game because they will be able to do these things natively. Like I've been exploring or considering if I do get back into WoW, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that I want to kind of go more minimal in my add-on kind of loadout, right? There's a few things that I know that I want that I wouldn't kind of give up, but something like LVUI, I would love to not have to do. So like, because I don't know where my configuration is now, and like I'm traveling, so I'm like on a different computer than my normal setup, and I don't think I have my normal setup, and like if all that stuff was just saved to my account, that would be a-okay with me.
What percentage of World of Warcraft players do you think don't use mods at all?
I would imagine that don't use mods at all is pretty low, because you kind of have to have a boss warning mod of some sort. So I don't know what that percentage is, but like you almost, if you're going to do anything that has bosses, you kind of almost need to have a boss timer of some sort, and those aren't very well built into the UI, I would say. So you need like a DBM or something. So
you think a large majority of players play with mods?
Well, I mean, if your question is, do I have at least one mod installed, right? Do I have at least one add-on installed in my World of Warcraft? I think the answer to that is almost everyone would say yes.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Which is funny because, yeah, the next thing to Sherlock, which I don't think they'll do, would be to do DBM, to do Deadly Boss mods, which is the, big warning, loud noises and stuff. Because I feel like for the game designers, they're like, oh no, you should be able to like see the monster winding up and see the red patch on the ground and all this stuff. And really these add-ons help to focus you on the things that you really should be focusing on in the middle of a big fight. So I think they serve a very important role, and unless they're going to build a bunch of quote unquote ugly things into the game, that they're very unaesthetic, but they're very useful for mechanically playing the game, which I don't think they're going to do, then I think there will always be a place for certain kinds of mods.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think they're ever going to build a DBM. Do you think they design the encounters assuming that DBM will be there?
Sometimes I feel like they almost have to. Like, I feel like there's so many things, and like there's no actual explanation of what's going on that I can keep track of, that you feel like they almost have to have some kind of assumption that everybody's going to be playing with something that's going to put text on there that says, move to circle, in big giant letters on the top center of the screen, because that's what like DBM does, get in the middle or get out or whatever. And it makes big loud noises when big things are happening and you need to use defensive cooldowns and all that kind of stuff. Now, I will say, to give them credit, there is the dungeon guide, which is like a little in-game book thing that like has all of the explanations of all of the spells and things that enemies will cast. But it's pretty hard to kind of just read the text, and like you'd have to kind of go in blind and do it 3 or 4 or 5 times and pay really close attention in order to kind of understand what the situation was and what you needed to do, and oh, that means this, and oh, that's when it puts a really big circle on the ground and I need to be outside the circle. Like, I feel like maybe you could do that, and obviously people did do it for a little while before DBM was a thing and before add-ons can do what they can do now. But I feel like at this point there's almost an assumption that people are going to have something that's going to kind of tell them what to do. But the people that make DBM, I think they have to figure it out on their own, though.
What? Okay, I'm blanking on the word that I really should know. What is the word where you watch the boss to find out like when and how he's going to do an attack?
Telegraphing?
Telegraphing. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Do you think that World of Warcraft's telegraphing is as clear as other MMOs, or do you think that like things just aren't telegraphed in certain ways? I mean, you can play I mean, Guild Wars 2 is great. I mean, I play a lot of Guild Wars 2, guys. Okay, I'm going to use that as an example a lot. All right, you play Guild Wars 2. There is very little in terms of add-ons that help you with boss mechanics. They exist. I admit they're out there, but you can very well and very easily, and most of the time, defeat all of the bosses in the game with no mods, because in my opinion, the telegraphing in Guild Wars 2, particularly because it's an action-based MMORPG, right? It's not tab target. Well, it is kind of tab target, but like you get what I mean. It's a little different combat style. So I feel like the telegraphing has to be there because it's a little bit more action-based than, say, World of Warcraft. When I was playing World of Warcraft, I tried it, right? I played Shadowlands for, I don't know, a couple weeks. Yeah. I struggled a lot with the telegraphing because I felt like it wasn't there. I didn't know what to look. I mean, I wasn't playing as much. I was new to World of Warcraft, so I didn't know exactly what I was looking for as much. But I felt the telegraphing was way more like you already had to know what was going to happen, and you had to have kind of DBM to tell you what to do. There was no like, oh, he's lifting his hand up. He's clearly going to pound the ground. So I should clearly, in Guild Wars 2, dodge roll or not be where he's going to slam. Or I just felt like it wasn't as natural. Would you agree with that? Or was that more of a, listen, you were a little inexperienced with World of Warcraft. It's there. You just didn't see it.
So I'm coming at this from a person who's probably never actually played World of Warcraft without DBM. So take this with however many grains of salt you need to. But those animations are in the game, I will say. However, I feel like, at least for me, I spend most of my time looking at my character and not at the boss if I'm playing a boss fight in World of Warcraft, for the most part, because I'm looking at my character and where I am and where the fire is on the ground and where the swirly marks are and things like that. I remember you were very concerned about the swirly marks not being as well delineated as they are in Guild Wars, which they are not.
Yes, I hated that. Where do they start and end? Am I standing in it or am I good?
Right. And so that was one of the big things that was a severe difference, is that they try to be a little bit more clever and a little bit more like, oh, we're just gonna, put it out in the world, and the world has the circle, but the circle doesn't have a hard edge because aesthetically that's not what we want, right? Whereas Guild Wars is just like, yeah, this is the circle. There are literally arrows that are pointing in or out, whether you should be inside or outside the circle. So like all of that stuff is baked in. Whereas I would say in WoW, it's very much more loose, and you just kind of have to get a feel for like, am I on the edge of the circle? Like, oh, this is the swirl, but there's like this little tiny tip, and as you think of a bike wheel, right? The spokes are far away on the outside of the wheel. So you might not be close to a swirl that's like shows you that you're in or out of the line, for a second or two, which can make all the difference. So yes, it's tricky. You kind of have to have a feel for like where the circle is and kind of estimate where it is. And that is less pronounced than it is in something like Guild Wars. But those things are telegraphed in the world without a mod. That's just base client. And if you were watching the boss, which again, I never do, but if you were watching the boss, they do have animations for all of their kind of activities and spells and things that they do. But most of the time it's because it is tab targeted. So you're not worried too much about like getting in range of the boss. I mean, if you're melee, you are kind of, but like you're not so worried about, the action side of things, so you're much more worried about the movement of your character.
Yeah, I would say that's true of other MMOs as well. I mean, that was one of the biggest things I had to learn in Guild Wars, was to be so comfortable with your own character and your own positioning that you didn't have to stare at your toolbar or your character. You could watch other things. And I'm sure that's true of World of Warcraft too. But you're right. Being so new with World of Warcraft, you're right. I was staring at my character, at my toolbar. So,
right. If you don't know what your spells are, then that's the first level of like, you can't be staring at your spell bar. You have to know like, okay, I want to do this thing. That means I push this key on the keyboard, right? And that's the first level of kind of comfortability with the systems in the game and the combat. But then it comes to be like, okay, what's my movement? Okay, my character is generally in the center of the screen. So therefore, if I'm going to be looking kind of out and around, then I know kind of, I have a feel for where I am and what movements I have to make without really looking right at my character. But I still think, and it's been a while, but you spend a lot of time looking at the ground and not so much at the boss or the mobs that are chasing you or whatever, but not necessarily like the big bad boss who's actually like, swinging the giant hammer at you.
Fair. All right. What else? Are anything else with Dragonflight that caught your attention? You said there were a couple features that kind of were, I would say, included with the expansion, but kind of ancillary to the maybe the story or the main Dragonflight feature.
Yeah, I think the UI is the big one, and then that crafting change with the order system and all of that. There's also a new talent system. They're actually making a tree that's like a real talent tree, which goes back to like an older World of Warcraft kind of feel. So they're looking at something that's got like, I don't know, 4 columns or something like that with different little ways to go between the columns. So like the tree actually looks like a tree instead of just like a, hey, here's one thing. Okay, now pick 2. Okay, now pick 1. Okay, now pick 2. Because that's what they've been doing recently, is a very simplified talent tree. But this one is more like a web almost.
So, okay. So you can you used to pick, God, I'm going to screw this up, but you used to pick like Ret Pally or some other kind of paladin. And now you're saying there might be some hybrid builds that may be good?
Yeah, that their idea is that they're trying to make it less cut and dry, like that you can be a little bit more, like have a little bit more agency of like what you want to do and what your playstyle is. I'm very interested to see how this plays out because I know that there's an entire economy around, best builds and guides and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if this is going to give a little bit more actual freedom of choice and not feeling like, oh, you have to pick one of these 2 builds, like one of these 2 sets of right. Allocating your points. You can choose to be like, oh no, I'm somebody that likes to hang back a little more. Oh, I like to be right up in their melee range or anything like that. I don't know. I'm interested to see kind of what this new talent system is. It seems like every expansion they tweak the talents somehow, but this is kind of the latest attempt at like, oh, let's get everybody interested and reinvigorate the talent system. They're also making it easy to save talent builds. So like you can actually like build up your talent tree and then like save it to a named build and then reload that. So that's another kind of quality of life systems thing, which is going to be really nice.
Yeah, that would almost be necessary when I think before you could switch between, I'm thinking of Shadowlands, you could switch between like the 3 or whatever different talent trees almost for your class.
Right, when you switch specialization, yeah.
Your specialization. It preserved like what you chose when you switch between them. But if you can kind of mix and match them a little bit more, a way to save them is almost necessary.
Yeah, and they're also doing something where they are basically giving you 2 talent trees. So you have like a class talent tree and then a specialization talent tree. So like you have lots of choices here.
Wow.
The example they give on the website is they have a restoration druid, and they have a tree for druid and a tree for restoration. And so then they can choose these things. Now, if you change specs, you would have, a tree for druid and a tree for feral or whatever. And so like the tree for druid always stays the same. And then the specialization would change, and that's another reason why you would need to kind of do these saved talent builds.
That's cool.
Yeah, so all of this is all just like system stuff, right? This has nothing to do with, oh, the new raids are going to be cool, oh, the new dungeons are going to be neat, the starting area is cool, whatever. We have barely talked about the flying. There's all that stuff, but I'm kind of interested in these systems and to see how they all kind of play out.
Well, keep us updated. I think I don't know if you ever said it on show, but you did at some point say that you're never playing WoW again. I don't think you were as serious as some other people that say that, but there was a point in the not so distant past where you're just like, I'm just done with WoW. And I'm not surprised to hear you say that you might go back, but I suspected maybe that you were going to skip an expansion. And it sounds like that may not be true. I know circumstances are really weird right now, and that's kind of leading to this. But at the same time, it's clear that the World of Warcraft expansions still definitely pique your interest.
I think I will get more hours out of a World of Warcraft expansion than I do out of a Destiny expansion, and I bought all of the last 7 of those or whatever, so I feel like I'm justified here.
That's the shame. That's the Destiny 2 shame.
Yeah, so I really think this is going to be okay. I'm looking forward to it.
You can't, okay, but I'm going to come back at you, though, and say that just by, again, this is the part about World of Warcraft that I just can't get over. You spend between $40 and $100 on the expansion and then pay $15 a month to play.
Yes, that is a little bit crazy at this point in this day and age.
You spend between $40 and $100 on a Destiny expansion, and then that's it.
Fair enough. That's true. That is very true.
I'm not defending Destiny here. I'm just like, if I could jump in and out of World of Warcraft, I would play it more. I would still have it installed right now.
Sure.
But it's not that kind of game, first of all. But also you can't just decide to be honest, I really haven't been playing Guild Wars a lot in the last couple of weeks because I've been playing a lot of Fortnite. Go listen to the last episode. But I don't feel bad about it. I don't pay for it. I don't care. But as soon as I'm ready to get back, and I still raid with my friends once a week, and that's it. Right now, I'm only playing once a week for 3 hours. I don't feel bad about that. And if I weren't to play for a while, that'd be fine. And if I wanted to play a little bit more, that'd be great. But I'm not paying $15 a month. And I know how normal this used to be. I used to pay for subscriptions every month for years. I know how normal it is. It just blows my mind that this is still a model that is working somehow.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's absolutely very strange. I give you that. However, I will probably still be that person that,
No, I'm not blaming you.
Goes ahead and does it.
Just do it. Just go for it. Anyway, will you update us again as we get closer? Because I'm going to forget, and I know you won't.
Yeah. No, definitely. So we are currently, as we record, we're about 8 weeks away from that release. So maybe in 5 episodes or so, we can revisit this. Put it on the list for episode 90.
Great. Let us know if you're going to play World of Warcraft with Chris. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
He's got a weird schedule.
I do have a very weird schedule, but it would be fun to have some people to play with.
I guess I'm interested. I know a lot of people. Well, I don't know if they listen to the show, but I don't know. The people that you hang out with, I'm interested in their opinions, maybe with Dragonflight, because I don't know. I guess I'm interested in where I know the numbers for World of Warcraft have kind of been dwindling, right? They're going in the down direction. So I'm really interested to see kind of how all this works out and if this ends up being good for World of. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's an interesting time for World of Warcraft, and another expansion. I'm interested in the buzz and really the opinions that come out of it. So if you'd like to share your opinions or talk with us or anything like that, you can join our Discord, which you can get to at discord.pnapodcast.com.
If you want to find any of our older episodes, read our show notes, or get in touch with us via email, you can visit our website at pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com.
If you're enjoying the show, we would love if you could just share it with some others that may enjoy it as well.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Have you heard of this game called Foxhole?
I have heard of this game from you called Foxhole, but that's about it.
Okay, this game has been in early access for a while. It's been out. It's been there's been some buzz around it, and it just released 1.0.
Okay.
And this is the kind of game that you read about and you watch people play, and you're just like, I would really enjoy that game.
Really?
And then you realize that it's the kind of game that you need to put so much time into that it literally feels like a job.
Well, I don't love that.
I just don't know how to feel about it. So let me explain the game here. So it is a persistent top-down war, ongoing war. I don't want to call it a simulator. It's not an RTS. You control one character. You control them with WASD, but you contribute to an ongoing war. And there's a front line and a map, and you control hexes on the map. And this war is persistent in that it lasts weeks to months. And when one of the two sides wins, the war resets and you go at it again. But it lasts weeks to months, right? It's ongoing. It's a lot like PlanetSide in the territory control. If you've ever played PlanetSide or PlanetSide 2, in the territory control, but there's a win condition, right? There's actual, not like in PlanetSide, there's actually a win condition. So if you capture enough territory, you win the war. The game resets 2 days later. There's a little bit of like post-war time. I don't really know what happens then, but there's like 2 days or whatever or 48 hours of someone has won, have fun, I guess, or something. And then the game resets. If you're back to kind of even, and you do it all over again. And one of the things with this game is every time a war happens, the devs change variables. So they may change the map a little bit. They may change some starting resource stuff. They may change, some of the tech trees. They may change little things that they may say in the next one, there's no boats or there's no tanks or, there's no bayonets or whatever. They may change things so that each war is slightly different. So that's why the game keeps going, keeps being interesting. It's not the same thing over and over again. But because it's so long, right? It's so long of a game. There's very little instant gratification. The gratification is it's very long. It's a very long game, right? You're playing the long game because it's days, weeks, or months before you actually win or lose. So, God, it just seems so cool, but at the same time, I just don't know what to think of it.
But so if I hop on for an evening or something like that to play this game for say an hour or two, what do I get to do? If the war is going on for a month, what is my 8 to 10 p.m. on a Wednesday get me?
So there's two main elements of the game. There's the combat and what everyone calls logistics or logi. And every gun, spawn, bullet, tank of fuel, everything has to go through a logistics chain to get to the front line. So you have to mine resources, refine them, turn them into materials, and then drive them to the front line. And all of that has to be done in order to supply the front line with, they call them shirts. They're like soldier supplies. It allows a soldier to respawn at that location. So if someone dies, they get to respawn. And if there's no shirts, you can't respawn. So all of that has to be supplied. And then when they respawn, they have to pick up a gun and they have to pick up ammo. And if there's no guns or ammos at that location where they spawned in, they don't get a gun or ammo.
Wow.
They can go loot it off of dead bodies that are in the field, but they have to be supplied. So it's like this logistics game in that element where you do not have to fire a single bullet and you can play this logistics game. Or obviously there's the other side of it, right? There's the spawn in, pick up a gun, pick up a set of ammo, maybe pick up a grenade if they're being supplied to the front line, and go fight the other side to win territory, right? It's the territory kind of push and pull. So there's that. And I would say if you only had an hour in the evening, you could probably complete a little bit of the logistics, right? You could probably mine some resources and drop them off at a base, and mine some resources and drop them off at a base, and someone else would kind of take care of the rest of the logistics train. Or you could do the go fight things, respawn, go fight things, respawn kind of loop. But to really see your impact, to really see a full battle, right? Where people are trying to take territory and lose territory and fight over it, and oh my gosh, we're out of respawn. Please, someone, go build some shirts and bring them up to the front line so people can respawn. Like, to really get like the whole picture of even just a battle, you need multiple hours.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds, I mean, it sounds cool. But it sounds a little bit slow. But it also feels like everything I want mining in Eve to be, but more practical. Like,
okay, I'm so happy you brought that up. Because as I'm watching this game, I'm thinking in my head, this is exactly what Eve is, sped up, but also slowed down.
Sure.
Because the whole point of Eve is, in a way, to control territory of these giant corporations, to like push and pull into the nullsec. And there's a lot of it where I don't really understand, because a lot of it is like political, but not necessarily in-game mechanics. Whereas in this, it's the same thing. You're doing logistics. You're doing all of this logistics. There's no economy, but you're doing all of these like industrial things to supply a war front that is actually an in-game system of controlling territory. And as I'm watching this, I'm just like, this is Eve. This is Eve. This is the industry supporting the war that's going on. That is the eternal war that is Eve. But it's actually like you're actually able to see the progress of the war in game. Like, there's actually a map, like who controls what territory.
Sure.
So and in a way, it's much faster than Eve, because you get to see the results very fast. But in another, like, I would say in general, compared to Eve, again, I haven't done too much combat. I haven't done really any PvP combat in Eve. But I feel like the battles themselves are longer, but the feedback loop of, okay, battle on to the next battle is faster, right? In Eve, you have a battle and then like nothing for 2 weeks, kind of. That's kind of what I imagine in my head. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's a day, whatever. In this game, it's a battle, and like you're already preparing for the next battle based on whether you think you're going to win or lose that first battle, right? There's a lot of like, oh my gosh, the front line is about to get pushed, so we have to build a set of bunkers on the back line, because if that becomes the front line, we need to be prepared. So like the feedback loop of the battles are faster, but the like battle themselves are slower.
Okay. I mean, that sounds kind of cool.
As I'm playing this game, I'm like, I don't think Chris would like this game. And then I'm like, I think Chris would love this game. And then I was like, I don't think Chris would like this game. And then I'm thinking to myself, Chris would love the industry in this game. Like, I love the industry. I just want to drive a truck the whole time. Like, it's like, it's just like, it's so weird. Like, it's this monotonous task of like going and mining minerals and dropping them off, and like thinking of how ungodly efficient you can make it if you actually organize a group of people to do this. I've been looking for a clan, because there's in game, there's clans and squads and regiments and all that good stuff. But like, if someone actually organized a group of people and said, listen, you 6 are responsible for mining, you 6 are responsible for transporting, you 6 are responsible for like manufacturing and keeping things up and running, and you 6 are responsible for transporting to the front lines, like, it would be so efficient. And it would be so cool to be a part of a team like that. And I can imagine a world where you're just like, okay, here you're in 6-person teams, and every hour, like you rotate, so you don't have to do the same thing all night. But like being a part, like I used to play PlanetSide, and I used to be in like big squads like that and get organized and everything like that. It was so fun to be part of a team like that. And I feel like if you could be a part of that in this, like, this is a game that has that opportunity. I have not found it yet.
Well, I hope you can find a good clan, I guess it would be, to get involved with, and find some people to play with, and maybe report back to us.
I will. Foxhole. It's on sale. I got it on sale on Humble Bundle. I'm going to plug Humble Bundle for a second here. If you're a Humble Monthly subscriber, you earn the discount over time, and eventually you get to 20% for being subscribed for long enough. Everything I buy, I look on Humble Bundle now because this was on sale on Steam, and they were matching the on sale on Steam on Humble Bundle, plus another 20% off because we're monthly subscribers. Loved it. Great deal. Always look on Humble Bundle. I think you and I did this with, did we do this with, I did this with the Skywalker Saga as well.
Yes, I did the same. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shout out to Humble Monthly.
It's the second best deal in gaming.